Greetings once again, and welcome to the Snowies. I'm still chasing the elusive Jagungal mountain, having come in from the Cesjacks approach, and I've made it to my high point from the reccy walk. Just a little off to the west here, I'm going to climb to this ridge line. On the other side of that should be the Jagungal saddle, and that will lead me further up onto the mountain. These ridges are the southern offshoots of Farm Ridge. We can see Jagungal in the distance. My intention was to reach Jagungal by avoiding the heath. The swamp in this valley was fairly dry and passable. Generally pretty rugged around here. The animal trails provide the easiest passage. Walking in the Jagungal wilderness can be extremely taxing on the feet, ankles and knees. Beyond this next ridge crest is a plateau leading over to the Jagungal saddle. That's where I've just come over from. The ridges in these parts look much like one another. I found it helpful to locate reference points and then keep track of them. At the ridge crest there was just enough passage through the heath. This short section was the thickest part, but there were channels made by deer. This is the ridge crest. Beyond the ridge crest is an upland. This upland is part of the extensive catchment of Doubtful Creek. The low forested ridge ahead is part of the true line of Farm Ridge, and the Jagungal saddle is beyond there. The catchment of Doubtful Creek drains south here, but then turns back to the north. This is Farm Ridge, which leads to the Tumut River near Round Mountain. Jackie's Lookout is beyond this prominence and is the highest point this side of Jagungal. The ridge is a forested upland about 200 metres wide. And now looking up to Jagungal Mountain with the Jagungal saddle in the foreground. We first have to cross to an intermediate ridge, and I found that a good place to aim for was this grassy saddle. Also, here I made a navigational error by choosing to stay right or north beyond the saddle. The heath became very thick there. On the way back I found that the left or southern side provides much easier passage. Okay, here's the mountain. It looks really heathy. Heading for this high point on the left. The Jagungal saddle separates Bogong Creek in the north from Doubtful Creek to the south. Both are tributaries of the Tumut River. Trying this gully approach. Now we'll see why it's better to stay left or south of the saddle. This right-hand side is riddled with heath. It's the type of area that first leads us in along grass pathways. Oh man. I wouldn't describe this scrub as impassable, just very hard work. Not easy. I had half imagined myself walking up a semi-open gully, but the gullies were the thickest places and I couldn't get near them. I've diverted onto the ridge crest. It's easier going and there's an animal trail. As I've mentioned repeatedly, animal trails and ridge crests are the key to passage in the Jagungal wilderness. Yam daisies. Yam daisies have a tuber that can be cooked and eaten. Up higher, the snow gums began to thin out. Still very heathy though. This seemed to be a good opportunity to talk about heath walking. One thing I know about the heath is that if we go in between the different types, the different colours, there's usually a channel in there. And if we have to actually tread on the heath, I always step in the middle. It's really springy. Can take the weight of the snow. Staying to the middle of them. They're really bendy. And of course, I'm going from snowgrass area to snowgrass area. At the top was another key part of the route, a grassy gap in the ridge. Okay, now I'm a bit higher. I think this is the Toolong ridge. These are rocks on Jagungal over there, I'm thinking, so I'm heading that way. Here I made another error because I couldn't see that there was a huge swathe of heath beyond the ridge in the foreground. Given another chance, I would climb instead to the grassy tops on the left of the image. We see to that area in a later shot and I'll point that out then. There were grassy channels in the low heath leading over there. The snowgrass ridge looked promising, the heath was still hidden. I should have visited that rise. I would have been able to see the whole area from there. Here looking back to get a fix on that grassy gap. That first saddle. And here the nightmare began. Again, first it leads us in. It was too tiring to film in, but here's a small sample. I would definitely avoid this if I had another chance. Here I am about halfway across. I even dropped the camera at one point, but only found it again because the charging cable was still attached and it was poking out of the heath. Once through though, the views opened up considerably. That's the direction I've just come over from. Very heathy. It was a nightmare and worth avoiding. And up a bit higher we see back onto the grassy tops that I should have climbed to. But now it was just alpine meadows to the top. Approaching the eastern outcrops of Mount Jagungal, we crossed the 2,000 metre mark. Not far now. This is the eastern bluff of Mount Jagungal. And there's the main summit. To the south we see the main range. Back to the Bulls Peaks. And here looking to the World's End Gorge and Round Mountain. I'm thinking to not go to the main summit. I need the extra time to get back. It's a big journey. Images from the summit are easy to come by. But I hadn't been to this part of the mountain before, so I'm really glad I finally made it out here. Usually it's the other way around. I'm at the main summit and I haven't got enough time to get here. And from this other side we can see out to the Cesjacks ridge, an obvious grassy ridge. And this route stays to the right of the image. You can see the Jagungal saddle down there. Beginning with the general landmarks, here's the Jagungal saddle, and this grassy swathe is the Cesjacks area. This is the low hill from the previous videos, and the huts in this area. As for the return route, I reversed the inward path from the grassy gap, which is really just a dip in the ridge. I passed through this area to stay south of the Jagungal saddle, and there's some images of that part of the crossing in the walkout footage. Beyond the Jagungal saddle, I retraced my path across the upland to the heathy ridge, then crossed the valley beyond to reach the spot where I began the video. After that was the offshoot ridge back to the crossing of Doubtful Creek, which leads to the Cesjacks ridge. I didn't film much on the way back to save time, but I made sure to film the route from the grassy gap. First I found a better way through the heath by keeping to the high ground, but I didn't film it. Here's the approach to the grassy gap. Here I head straight over the gap to stay south of the Jagungal saddle. These are the slopes beyond the gap. And here's the view back once through. It's definitely a better way. And to finish up, Jagungal Mountain from Jagungal Saddle. So there we go, visit to the mighty Jagungal from the Cesjacks area as a day trip. Excellent stuff. And it was quite hard yakka and a pretty long way. I'm really feeling it actually. Can't wait to relax. Yes, as I said, I hadn't been out there before, so now it's great. I've got a picture in my mind about that area. So I guess this is the other end of the walk. I'm back on the Cesjacks ridge, thinking to sign out here. See ya.